Hello and welcome to today's rant. Welcome to Mark's first video essay/lesson. That's me. I'm the one trapped within the image. So, today's lesson, I want to sort of discuss a certain literary trope or concept that I've had, which is the idea of the fallen chosen one, or the fallen hero. I might refer to them as the fell hero or chosen one a few times, but they're the same thing. As a quick warning, I'm going to talk about spoilers for the Star Wars prequel trilogy, Fantasy High Season 1, the books Red Wolf and What Big Teeth, and lastly, Stranger Things Season 4. So if you don't want to get spoiled, skip those sections, but I'm not going to be putting any time slips in there. So, however, before I get into the fallen chosen one trope, I think it's best to start with the original trope that it's based off of, which is the trope of the chosen one. So without further ado, I beg the question, to what is a chosen one? The chosen one is someone who is chosen to do something, yeah. But, is there more to it? Scholar Kelly Dickinson talks about how, quote, this trope usually involves the inclusion of a character, usually the protagonist, who has in some way been marked as especially gifted or otherwise uniquely equipped to complete a special mission. Whether they've been chosen by a deity, a prophecy, or circumstances of birth, chosen ones in fantasy tales must often complete quests, battle evil forces, and make difficult, pivotal choices in order to achieve their destinies, end quote. And that is the general observation of the characteristics behind the chosen one. This sort of definition is further expanded by Cruz and Schmidt when they talk about how the chosen one does not appear in most ordinary stories, for it is the world around them that comes up with the circumstances. But what does that even mean? The world around them creates the chosen one does not create the world. Well, as they talk about, the world is in peril, but fortunately there is a chosen one who will save it. The chosen one is prophesied as the only one who can save humanity, or the world, or the universe, by virtue of his, or rarely her, special innate abilities. Chosen ones are essentially the saviors of the world, whether the entire world or just their personal one, such as like a community, a tribe, a family, a country, that sort of thing. But is there anything else? Yeah. Well, usually the chosen one comes from a destitute upbringing. They have some sort of distinguishing characteristic or supernatural power, but most importantly above all, they have a destined goal. There are, of course, some critics of the chosen one's trope that dissect its most problematic parts, such as how the chosen one figure embodies Anglo-American understandings of the hero's journey and savior narratives theorized by Joseph Campbell. It is a site of colonial triumph and the violence and heteronormative white masculinity. So as I made this presentation, I noticed something. This presentation does not represent many diverse ways of life. It typically is white, although some of the genders have switched. I include men and women. Although it is still a typical heteronormative, homogeneous story, trope. I want to think this is just my limited scope, that I have not consumed enough pieces of literature in my life with the subject at hand to really experience the diversity, but it is something that I notice and I will keep in mind as I go forward. But now the real topic at hand, the fell or fallen chosen one. Woohoo! Good job! You're a hero and you fulfilled your destiny. Congrats. Nothing changed, right? Right? Uh-oh, you're evil now. Well, I should put a little asterisk there. Because evil in this case is the inverse of righteousness of the chooser. This is kind of complicated, but this is the crutch of the argument, where if the chooser is evil, the fallen chosen one will come out to be good. If the chooser is good, the fallen chosen one will become evil. This will become easily explained as it moves on. So I'm going to start with the easiest example, I believe. Whether it's young adult, yada yada, that can be contested. But I wanted to start easy. So, I'm going to talk about Anakin Skywalker. You can also... Okay, so I'm looking at Anakin Skywalker from the Star Wars series, looking specifically at George Lucas's prequel trilogy. Although, as I'm noting, you can also look at Disney's series with Kylo Ren, as they have a lot of overlapping mechanics. I just, won't really mention them that much. Here's how Anakin is the chosen one. He is quite literally Christ-like in nature. He was birthed by divine birth to a mother with no father, immaculate conception. He also has a destiny, a prophecy, where he will, as they mentioned, bring balance to the Force. And he will do this because he is one of the strongest Force users out there, especially at the time of creation. But, as we all know, he had an uh-oh moment, a major uh-oh moment. He did a little massacre of some younglings. He betrayed his mentor and peers, and he fully succumbed to the dark side of the Force. He has become the Fell Chosen. You see, in this case, the prophecy was fulfilled, as the Fallen Chosen always fulfills their prophecy. But now he is bad. He is evil. For the original chooser were the Jedi, and now the Jedi have been betrayed by him. Next, I want to talk about a different style of narrative. Not really a TV show or a book, but more of a podcast style. Well, the example I'm going to use is a podcast, but the overall messaging is about the tabletop role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons. In the heart of Dungeons & Dragons, all of the players around the table play characters that are, by the nature of the game, chosen ones. They are the ones with soul behind them, autonomy, agency. They are the creators of the story, in an essence. Many adventures have their players have a mentor figure. Oftentimes this mentor figure is gotten rid of in some one way or another, whether killed or betrayed by the players. And that is what I'm going to bring up next. Dimension 20's Fantasy High. Created by the Dungeon Master or Game Master, Brennan Lee Mulligan. Now, Fantasy High is a story created by Brennan Lee Mulligan, as I said, where he wanted to make a sort of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition worlds, but put in a John Hughes-esque high school coming-of-age story. Now, this is the dual mode. I included it to be a dual mode of choosers. However, I think it's better to just be the dual choosers, because there are two of them. The first one I'm going to talk about is Golden Horde, how he is, spoiler, the bad one. But there's another chooser, which is Arthur Eggfort, which is the good one. Arthur Eggfort is absent from the story, though. He is the principal of the school, the Eggfort Academy. He is gone from the story from episode 2, for he is kind of dead. I say kind of because that whole thing is explained later. And the vice principal assumes the principal position, and the vice principal is Vice Principal Goldenhorde, the evil one. And he then assumes the role as a mentor figure for all of the students, being the role of a principal. However, he turns out to be not good. Vice Principal Goldenhorde is evil. He's the big bad evil guy of the series, of the first series at least, of the first season. The party finds this out, that he's the evil one behind all of this shenanigans going on, and they slay him. Now, when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, I wanted to sort of add this in here, although it doesn't really have to do too much with the essay at hand, because the party, especially in this case, but also in general, they're typically not straightforward characters. They're not all good. There's usually some petty crimes in there that go against the common good, but nothing out of the scope of, a typical Dungeons and Dragons party. Now, time to take a walk over to some books, alright? That's a book, if you're curious. I'm the one trapped inside of it. The first book I want to talk about is Red Wolf by Rachel Vincent, and it's another story with several choosers. Well, 2, to be exact. Well, 2 types. The humanish chooser, but a new one. A different one. One talked about earlier, but a different chooser. Blood. Well, blood meaning bloodline. It's a destined bloodline book. Red Wolf is the title of the book, and red wolves are a style of werewolf that have a red coat to them, and these are, as the grandma in the book puts it, humans that take the role of wolves, where they are the antithesis of the white wolf, which are wolves that take the form of humans. Now, Adele, the main protagonist, it's her destiny to become a guardian. A guardian is somebody from the blessed or cursed, depending on how you look at it, bloodline that becomes a werewolf, and they venture into what is known as the Dark Woods to slay creatures and keep the brink of humanity safe. Now, this bloodline, this blessed bloodline, it only affects the women in the family. It is like a typical coming-of-age story in that sense. It's clearly an allusion to puberty, but that's a different topic. Completely. So what is Adele's destiny? Well, at the behest of her mother and grandmother, her destiny is to become a guardian. To leave the one that she loves, to leave her hometown, and to protect the hometown of the man she was betrothed to without her permission or consent, because she was betrothed as a child without her knowledge until she became of age, when she became a guardian. And she succeeds in her mission, or in her quote-unquote destiny. She does become a guardian at the end of the book. She does end up leaving her original lover. Leaving her hometown was a little bit more up in the gray area, because the end of the book sort of has her stay behind, although I think it's implied that she assumes the grandmother's house instead of returning to the village, because if she returned to the village, then she would be executed for being a wolf. Oh, right. They don't like them. The people of the villages don't like werewolves. They consider them witches, and they burn witches. She does protect the hometown, but, mostly her hometown. She protects the hometown being a guardian. So, in that sense, so long as she is a guardian, she will protect hometowns and she'll protect all of humanity. Now, I just wanted to give another brief reminder that the fallen chosen one is different than the failed chosen one because the fallen one succeeds. So where does Adele fall? Well, she protects the white wolf pups, which are, the antithesis of her kind, because she finds out, whoa, they're actually not so different. They are just humans who lost their humanity by being wolves for too long. This goes directly against the orders of her grandmother, her betrothed, and her mother, who all three urge her to execute the children who are just werewolf pups. She does not leave her hometown, so that part of her destiny falls flat. She fails that, actually. She doesn't just fall, she fails that. Although it seems like, as I just said, I think she claims her grandmother's house. And, the kidnapping of the pups saves them from the slaughter of other werewolves, and other red wolves, I should say. And her parents, her mother, I should say, no father, sort of agrees with her decisions at the end, we assume, but her betrothed does support her the entire time through. So that is good. Now time to talk about the book What Big Teeth by Rose Sabo. And I know what you're talking about. I know what you're saying. I can hear you in those comments. Wow. 2 Red Riding Hood-esque books in a row. That's crazy. I know. Now, let me talk about it. So, Eleanor, the protagonist, I'm going to give some background before I give into how she is a fallen one. She is not a werewolf like her father's side of the family, her siblings, her cousin. Nor is she a witch like her father's grandma, or as I will refer to her as, the matriarch. Nor is she like a mermaid-esque thing like her mother. She is whatever her grandmere is, which is the mother's mother. So this is another instance of the dual choosers. I know it's set in the rotation of grandmere and then the matriarch, but I'm going to talk about the matriarch first. See, as a witch, the matriarch uses tarot readings to unveil Eleanor's destiny in front of her. She pulls a card that Eleanor finds out represents the grandmere. And this card has 2 meanings to it. It means Eleanor is either going to bring ruin to her family or is going to save her family. Because it is set up that way, there is no way through the matriarch that Eleanor can become a fallen one. For the destiny lays out both failure and betrayal, but also honor and protection. So, no matter which way it goes, it would be destined to happen. And in that sense, the matriarch's destiny, which is the true destiny of Eleanor, is going to be less relevant than Grandmere's destiny. You see, I was trying to figure out what the Grandmere and Eleanor were, because they are beings that, I'll talk about Grandmere as a case example, even though they're the same type of creature. It is a being capable of consuming whole any living creature, and then spitting them back out whole, but lifeless, as if they're like a puppet. It's some sort of all-consuming god puppet. They also have kind of like the Force from Star Wars, where they are able to persuade people with their words and the tone of their voice. So they're kind of like mesmers, as I thought, When I talked to other people, they said maybe succubuses, which I'm still not sure. I just like to call them all-consuming god things. Some eldritch abominations, if you may. The Grandmere, when she sees Eleanor, she sees the potential in Eleanor to become as powerful as the Grandmere herself is. This is her goal, her specific personal destiny for Eleanor. The fate as told, though. In the conclusion, in the climax, the big fight between Eleanor and the Grandmere, Eleanor consumes her cousin. This is what the Grandmere wanted. The Grandmere wanted Eleanor to assume her role as the consumer, no matter what Eleanor didn't want. She did not want to bring ruin to her family. She wanted to protect them. But here she is consuming her cousin, which was all through trickery and the feint of power. Eleanor then consumes her Grandmere, which was a wild scene. Waits for the Grandmere to be weak, uses the power of family to do so as well. All while this is happening, there's a fire ravaging the manor, bringing it to the ground, leading it to ruin. This leads to Eleanor's family needing to be exiled. Eleanor comes to find out then, as irony foretold in destiny, she needed to bring ruin to her family to save them from becoming destroyed. It's one of those, you must burn to rebuild again, you must destroy to make room for new. So that is basically the moral of the story, and she's the fell because she goes against both of her chooses. More Grandmere than the matriarch, but still, both. In this last entry, I want to talk about Season 4's of Stranger Things' is Vecna, or 1, and talk about how he, the main villain of the story, is a fallen chosen one. Well, he kinda is. He is, it's in the name that he is the chosen one, so I will talk about how he is a fell instead of a failed chosen one. So, did he have a chosen destiny? It's not super well explained because he is still just a villain, but it seems implied that yes, he does. His name being 001, which is tattooed, meaning he was the first of his kind. He shows his strength before becoming Vecna through the moment of the second child massacre scene in this presentation, which is not a theme that I like. But he shows his strength by killing everybody in the laboratory, proving that he is one of the strongest magicians in the entire show. Now, when he becomes Vecna, he becomes far stronger. When it comes to the destiny of Vecna as a part to 1, we don't fully know. However, him in his twist scene, him when he kills everyone in the laboratory, is him becoming fallen. It is him going from destined for strength and power to strength and power with no morals. This one might be one of the more loose arguments because it's looking at more of the villain of the story instead of a protagonist. It's looking at the antagonist. And the destinies are laid less clear because we still don't know where the powers of the magicians come from. It may be in his blood. It may be foretold by some prophecies. Only time will tell. Only the latest seasons will tell. Now, shall we pit this trope of fallen chosen ones against other types of the chosen ones? thinking yes. So, I want to talk about the theory of the doomed Messiah, which was a concept created by scholar Radhia Chowdhury. And it's a very interesting concept that talks, it sort of goes hand in hand with the fell chosen. But much like the fallen chosen one, much like the failed chosen one, the concepts overlap, but there's also some differences. The child messiah of the late 20th century children's fantasy is not the luckily chosen one, but a doomed sacrifice to fate in exchange for the future survival of the human race. As Chowdhury said, straight up, very cut and dry. The fell chosen often sacrifice the morals and principles of their chooser in order to make the decision they deem is morally correct. Whether, I say morally right, but I think morally correct is better. Because I do not believe Anakin, when the killing scenes happen, believed that they were on the right side of history. I do believe, though, that they did what they thought was the correct thing. Which, I mean, it might just be semantics, but I believe there's something there. The doomed messiah, they are not always beneficent in this endeavor. They can, in fact, be the agents of a more threatening future. Now, this is where some overlap happens. Eleanor from What Big Teeth has the unknown future, and this is for her being the fallen chosen. Her succeeding in her assuming her destiny, all the while betraying the morals of the choosers, and in one instance killing the chooser. Her future, we don't know whether her family will be accepted as refuge in any other place, or if they are doomed to eternally walk the plains until the family is destroyed, left to ruin. This is also the same argument as Adele from Red Wolf and her rejection of destiny. Her future is very mysterious, very bleak. We don't know whether or not she is going to live out her days without being caught by the people in town. There's no implication of a happy ending or a happy future. It is shown time and time again that her time alive will be hard, all while, humanity is ignorant and arrogant against the wolf, the guardians. Now, let me wrap some things up. What was talked about was the fell chosen one, the trope. Where a chosen one sort of fulfills the destiny that they were supposed to have, and in doing so, switch alignments, whether they are evil destined, such as Eleanor, to become good, or good destined, such as Anakin, to become evil. It isn't super perverse of a trope, although where it does show up, it is very it's a very interesting dynamic. Finding out whether the chooser is a morally righteous character, and whether the chosen is morally righteous in their ways, and when those two powers conflict with each other, negative outcomes are very likely. At least for one of the parties. It often ends with the deaths of the mentor. Vecna's mentor, which is father, is not dead at the time of this recording. I do not believe, or at least was not killed by the fulfillment of Vecna's prophecy. Anakin's mentor does not die via Anakin's prophecy being fulfilled. I'm saying in this case, yeah, we all know. Adele's mentor grandmother figure does die in the fulfillment of Adele's prophecy, and Eleanor's, both of the choosers, the grandmere, and the matriarch, both perish in the fulfillment of Eleanor's chosen destiny. And so this is the trope of the fallen chosen one, and here are the sources. I'm just gonna sort of let this one hang in the air for a little bit. So, thank you all very much for listening. I enjoyed this. Maybe in the future I'll do more on different subjects. Thank you very much. Have one lovely day.